Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you here this morning or afternoon if you're somewhere other than the Pacific Coast, which is where I'm located. I'm going to reduce our lovely theme music so you can hear me a little bit better. And we're going to talk about a very important issue today. And that very important issue is the issue of scales. I've been making the joke, oh, it's a weighty issue. Ha ha ha. Yes, we're a pun-heavy organization. I know that. I know that. I can't help it. It's part of who we are. So I want to recognize that our bumper music is Planetarium. That's courtesy of Michael King. It's used with his permission. We do enjoy the nice calming sounds of that. It's a nice way to talk about an exciting subject. And yes, this is an exciting subject, for me at least. When I was coming up in coffee, like most folks, I learned how to make coffee with scoops. And I want to be very clear here that the key thing we're going to really talk about today is proportions and ratios. And that is really what actually really matters, is having the right amount of coffee for the amount of water we're using to brew. That has to do with how the water interacts with the coffee, interacts with non-water solubles, interacts with water solubles, and how it pulls the things we want out of the coffee. The right amount of water to coffee. That's the key thing, and we'll talk about that in the second half of the conversation. However, a great way to ensure that we are dealing with the right ratios and right proportions is to be using the proper tools. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about scales. So I said in some of the materials put out on Facebook this morning that I'm going to claim that the scale is the second most important tool in your kitchen. And I say that not just in your coffee corner, but in your kitchen. And I think if you have any bakers at home right now, I know that baking has gone off the charts all across the country. So if you have bakers in your home, you know that they got turned on to scales probably years ago, because weighing in baking is what produces really steady results, where the same thing is actually true for coffee. So I'm going to do a quick demo, and we're going to take a look at why that might be by discussing coffee a little bit. So we'll take a look over here at our scale. This is the Ascali scale, and I have three types of coffee you'll see here, right? So I have my Guji right here, boop, boop, boop. I have some Bolivia, which we're going to be using in our Brew Together event on Saturday, which you should check out. I'll talk more about that at the end of the show today. And then I have some Bohemian. So two single origins from two different parts of the world, two different types of coffee with different processing methods. And so what that means is that we can take a look at these coffees, and it's not quite as easy as if you were here with me, but you can tell that they are in fact different in size and shape slightly. You know, slight differentiations. If you were to take a handful of the coffees and just look at them, you'd just say coffee, but they are different. And then we have a blend, right, the Bohemian here, which this coffee has a darker roast applied to it. We can probably tell it most by looking at it next to, I have these mixed up, this is the Guji here, right? Much smaller beans for the Guji than for the Bohemian. So that has an implication, doesn't it? If we're talking about using a volumetric tool like tablespoon, right? Or we often think about how we're going to measure our coffee. Brendan says that cooking is also important. He uses scales and thermometers daily when he cooks. He says those who do not suffer for it, and I think he must mean the people he's cooking for. All right, so here's what we want to do, and this is just a really quick little exercise. We're going to put on a container here. We're going to start our scale up and tear it out to grams, and we're going to take a sample of, you know, this is the trick. This is the first place where we start having some issues. So here we have a tablespoon. Oh, get it below my thing. Tablespoon, right? And you can see there's some coffee above, there's some below. Because of the size and shape issues of the coffee, each tablespoon is going to be a little bit different. That was 7. I just got into 14, so it wasn't quite there. Okay. There we have 20 grams. The Gucci. All right. Let's see what happens when we have 3 tablespoons of the Bolivia. Ooh, there we go. First big difference. Okay, that one a little bit different. All right, so notice a 3-gram difference. 3 tablespoons, 3-gram difference. And then let's see what happens with this Bohemia blend. I mean, I'm trying to be, get the same amount of coffee in each tablespoon, but it's a little bit difficult because all right, so split the difference there, right? So let's see, line them up in how they're presented here. That's the Bohemia, that's the Bolivia, and that's the Guj. So 3 different coffees, 3 different weights when we use a volumetric tool. Now, I mean, those numbers might seem small. However, we're going to brew 1 cup of coffee today, and we're going to be using a little bit less. We're going to be using 16 grams of coffee when we brew that today. But if you were to blow that up to making like a Chemex, which makes multiple cups of coffee, okay. All right. Thank you, Forrest, for your comments. All right. Here we go. Forrest doesn't seem to care too much about it, so that's cool. There we are. All right. So we'll just remove that. But thank you, Forrest, for watching. So that is the differentiation with the scales. Now, I want to point out that there is a relationship between volume with water and with volume and weight. So what we're going to do is we're going to, and I have to watch the actual scale because there's a slight delay in these cameras. I'm going to measure it out to 200 grams of water. All right, so, and you can't quite tell, and I can't move the camera, but in fact, so when we say 200 grams of water on the scale, that makes 200 milliliters of water, all right? So there is a relationship. A gram of water is a milliliter of water. So there are ways to use our proportions when we don't have a scale. But having a scale just makes it easier. So the next thing I want to do is I want to do a little brewing demonstration. So the first thing we'll do is we'll come over here. We're going to use one of my favorite brewing methods, the standard Melita. And we're going to talk now about the ratios that I mentioned earlier, the proportions, okay? So you might have heard us reference the proportions before, the ratios before, when we've talked about brewing coffee. So I'm going to be using a 1 to 16, a 1 to 16 ratio. That means it's going to be 1 gram of coffee for 16 grams of water. All right? Now, here's the part where we can we can break it down a little bit, right? So what I've done is I want to make just enough coffee for this one mug. I'm going to be having coffee by myself this morning. I'm the only one up, so I'm just making enough coffee for myself. So I have my mug, and I've gone ahead and weighed how much water goes into that mug, right? This mug holds 260 grams of water, not coffee. See, relating to what Forrest said, a little bit tired this morning. So if I do the math, 216 divided by 16, if I want to have 260 grams of coffee in that mug, I'll need to use 16.25 grams of coffee. And then what I'm going to do also is I'm going to add an additional 10% to the water for the absorption by the coffee. So that means I'm going to put in 16 grams of ground coffee into this filter, and I'm going to add 286 grams of water. And that is what will keep my proportion straight. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to pre-wet my filter, right? And you guys know the reason we do that is because we want to we want to get the filter saturated with water so that when we start extracting our coffee, we are not wicking any of the things we want into the filter. The filter's already it's already saturated with water at that point, so what we want will pass right through it. And now I want to measure out my coffee, and here we are. Right, so I put my scale down there, I'm going to tear it out, and I'm going to be making Ethiopia Guji. Now it says 16.25. This scale doesn't quite get that fine, so I'm going to wait till my 16 comes up. There's 16, and you know what, I'm just going to put a couple more beans in. See, there's that magical aspect, that unmeasured, unscientific aspect that some folks are looking for. I'm going to grind my coffee fresh. Now, at this point I put my mug and my milliliter filter on top of the scale. I'm going to remove myself there so you can see me. And now I'm going to, I always like to weigh the coffee to make sure I haven't lost any in the burrs, or just to be clear. All right, here's my 16 grams. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a shake there. All right, so I'm going to tare again because I want to get back down. Now remember, I have 16 grams of water there. So that means I want to bloom the coffee first by adding approximately the same amount of weight of water. Look at that, I already lost it. Look at that, see? Tear again. So I'll start by adding 32 grams. A little bit more. Again, because I'm watching the screen as opposed to watching the actual scale. I have to stand up to do that. I'm going to wait about 30 seconds. You'll see that coffee, the big bubbles appearing on top there. It's the coffee exchanging the gas that's still captured in the beans, and we've just ground them, so it's releasing that gas and exchanging it for water in the bloom. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my next pour. I'm going to saturate all the coffee. I'm going to get it to about its halfway point. Okay. Now, the great thing about this is when we weigh it, we don't have to guess. We just bring our coffee. Again, I'm going for 286. Another pour. I'm doing multiple pours to try and keep the coffee level low. I don't want to to bring it all the way up to the top of the brewer. And then I'll do my last pour up to 286. And then you might have seen when I've done these pour overs before, I'll do a little thing where I'll kind of rotate the coffee around. And that brings coffee down from the sides of the filter. And so the goal is, as the water passes down, I talked about this yesterday when we did the Chemex, when in a conical shape, whether it's like a true cone like a V60 or a Chemex, or in this case a Melita, which is a kind of a partial cone with a flat bottom or a ridge at the bottom, the water will push the coffee over to the sides, right? And then the water drains down through the grounds and can leave some of the grounds on the wall. I want to try and agitate those back down into the slurry of the coffee so that we capture everything we can out of it. All right, and we're almost done here. Not quite. So, yes, we do have a couple of options for coffee scales, as Brendan has just mentioned. I'm going to pop over onto the website here for a second. We'll go back to our main plane. We're going to go into our here we are. So if you pop onto our website, you'll go over to coffee, but brewers and accessories. Go down over to accessories, and you'll see we have two different options. We have the Brewista Smart Coffee Scale and the Ascali Primo, which is the one I was using today. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one. And remember, the discount that we are hopefully constantly reminding you of applies to this scale as well, right? So if we go ahead and choose an option, first of all, you can choose different colors. I like the orange myself. I'm going to add that to my cart. And then you go to your cart and go to checkout, make sure that you put in the discount code here. Watch and learn 10, right? Make sure you spell that. I'm going to apply the coupon there. And you'll see, of course, that it removes that 10% off the top of that. Great. And throw in some coffee, and you get free shipping. Not such a bad deal. I wanted to remind folks that we are going to be having an event this Saturday. It's at noon Pacific time, 3 o'clock Eastern time, and it is a brewing together event in which we're going to be using a Chemex through a Zoom call and our Bolivia coffee to brew coffee together, right? So we'll have several of the folks, myself, Brendan, a few other of the Batdorf staff. We're all brewing at the same time, talking about our coffee and the different things we're doing to brew together. And then for the folks who participate in that, we'll be doing a drawing, and there'll be a pretty awesome prize, which is 6 months. Correction, 9 a.m., 12. Yeah. Yeah, it's 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 Eastern, right? So, Kristen, you're funny, Kristen. I'll just put up here real quick. Kristen says, I don't know if you can see it here. I'll remove this. She says, I thought it was, no, I'm not able to move through this. She says, we said it was 9 a.m. a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. She says, oh, I thought it was 12 p.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Very funny, Kristen. You are a laugh riot. I love it. But so yeah, show up either at 9 a.m. Pacific time or noon Eastern time, or noon Eastern time. Either way, you'll be drinking coffee with us, and then one person will of course get to win to win that 6-month coffee subscription. We look forward to sharing that with you. There's that coupon code, remember, and let's switch over here to the, okay, there we are. There's my cup of coffee. Now you can see that's right about where I want the coffee to be. Guji. We did a deep dive into Guji yesterday, in which we brewed it a couple different ways, and it was awesome. It was great to brew it through a Chemex, and then Brendan did some work with espresso on it. Really fun to take a look at our coffees that way. So don't forget, up in the comments here, you'll see links to the scales. Use that link, and please consider it. If you're going to be brewing with us on Saturday, I don't know if we can get a scale to you now, but hopefully you already have one, right? Or maybe this will convince you to get one. Hopefully this has been enlightening for you. You've enjoyed it, and hopefully it's allowed you to learn a little something about why we do the things that we do. There are reasons, and they may seem a little finicky or maybe intense. That's okay. It's something that we love. And I love making coffee. I'll tell you that how I learned to make coffee when I started in this industry 23 years ago is very different than what I've learned over the last 26 years. Those things change, and we grow, and we learn new ways of working with coffee. And hopefully that's what you're getting to experience too by joining us here for these demos that we do every day, and through participating in special events with us as well. Hopefully you're learning and growing in this coffee, that's become something more than just a commodity for you, more than just a way to wake up in the morning, that it's something that you actually put some intention and some care into. Because I'll tell you, we work with folks who put intention and care into this from seed all the way through to the cup, right? This is a global enterprise, and we're in partnership with farmers, and we want to respect the work they're doing by respecting what we're doing here in the cup when we get it home. And if you're watching, you probably get that. So I appreciate that. Remember, tomorrow join Ben here at 9 a.m. For another demo, and then our event on Saturday, which we're hosting through the Batdorf and Bronson VIP Booster Club, which is a Facebook group that you can join. You can go there, join, and we do fun things there like this event. We also have special offers there, previews of coffees before they're released to the wider public. It's kind of a team of super fans there. We'd love to have you over there and getting access to some of the things we offer there. So please go check that out. We'll provide a link in the comments here. And we look forward to seeing you on tomorrow, Saturday, and of course next week, as we keep learning how to turn our homes into cafes one day at a time.